Hey guys, it's Vandy Ezel back again with another card fight Vanguard deck profile. So hope you guys enjoy. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and donate to the Patreon. So let's get me started. Today's deck is Pale Moon Nightmare Dolls. So Nightmare Dolls got a secret reveal, it got a quote-unquote secret reveal where it was revealed at an unexpected time. And Nightmare Dolls are kind of consistent now. Like, it's not like they weren't consistent before, but now they feel a bit more consistent with it being able to soul charge more. They have more grade 3 options besides Alice, who was kind of always out of my price range, more or less. So it's nice to have that. Let's go ahead and get this started. First up, the starter. Entertain Messenger. 6k base, 10k shield. Auto when wrote upon, draw a card. Then if your opponent's Vanguard's a grade 1 or greater, put a quick shield ticket into your hand. So the draw was top deck into, and the quick shield ticket, that's a 5k shield. So always helpful to have that, even if you just discard it most of the time. We've got 4 draw PGs, because who doesn't like draws, who doesn't like PGs. The deck is mainly Rainbow Trigger with 4 Dynamite Juggler and 4 Hoop Magician and then 4 Candy Clown. I don't think this deck needs too many fronts, but overrunning it with crits does not seem like a good idea either. And drawing a bunch of cards also doesn't seem like it would be a good idea, despite the fact that the deck doesn't soul charge a lot. It does get a lot of Excel gifts, and if you pick Excel 2, combined with a lot of draws, that will eventually make you deck yourself out. So I'd say Rainbow is the best way to go, but some people have their own opinion, and that's fine. First up, we run 3 copies of Nightmare Doll Beverly. 7k base, 10k shield, auto rearguard. When your other Workroid is placed in the same column as this unit, it gets plus 5k power to end of turn. So that is not a once per turn ability. That is very helpful, because this deck solves a lot of stuff into Soul, calls him out of Soul, and also rides. So if you place this in the back center every turn, you'll give plus 5 because you ride a lot. So that ought to be like a plus 17 if you play it right. And if you just call it to a rearguard circle, you can just multi-attack with that same rearguard, and it slowly gets stronger, and then you just attack with it. So really helpful. If they had stands in this deck, if stands were allowed in here, this would kind of be a really slightly broken card. So, use this in premium. 3 copies. Next up, we got 4 copies of Nightmare Doll Marion. 8k base, 10k shield. Auto Soul, when your Workroid is placed on Van, call this card a rear. This ability may not be used by the same card name once per turn, and does not activate when this unit is wrote upon. So 1, it's named once per turn, so you can't do it more than once. And you also can't do it during your first ride when you go from grade 1 to grade 2. But you ride a lot in this deck, like during main phase, during battle phase. You can save this in your soul, and you can just abuse it, call it down during the battle phase, call it down during the main phase to get set up for stuff. It's just all around a really helpful card, and you don't have to minus by riding, which I don't like doing. So 4 copies. And 4 copies of the new grade 1. Nightmare Doll Abigail. 8k base, 10k shield. Auto Vanguard when placed soul charge 1. That is a Vanguard restrictive skill, and I kind of don't like it. But that soul charge is helpful because it can get you, like I said, set up for later, like grade 3s, hopefully not triggers, grade 2s, grade 1s, etc. And auto rearguard circle at the end of the turn, your turn, retire this unit, and return a grade 3 Workroid from your soul to hand, and if your Vanguard is a Workroid, countercharge 1. So that's really helpful. This deck does counterblast a decent amount, so being able to uncounterblast is always amazing, especially since no matter what you ride in this deck, at any point in time, if this is on rear, that is assuming that you made it to grade 1 or greater, which means you can call it. That's just a guaranteed countercharge, because everything in this deck that isn't a trigger is a Workroid. So that's nice. And then if you do soul charge a grade 3, you can just call this down to rear and get that grade 3 right back. So all around, just helpful. And you can just loop it, because since you ride a grade 3 during your battle phase, you can get that grade 3 that you rode upon earlier back from your soul into your hand, and then you can just repeat the loop all day. So all around, really helpful. 4 copies. 3 copies of Nightmare Doll Ellen. 9k base, 5k shield. Auto rearguard. When it attacks counterblast 1, put another Workroid on your rearguard into soul and draw a card, and this unit gets plus 10k power to end the turn. So that's good. It can hit a Vanguard on its own without triggers, without boosting, without anything. That being said, if they don't have a trigger either. So you can kind of put this in the same column as Nightmare Doll Beverly, because if you just send this to Soul later, it's going to get more power, and it can just keep hitting on its own. If it says something to Soul, you get a free draw out of it, so you can always use that for guarding power later, hopefully, or just something good for riding next turn or calling her board. And it gets plus 10k power, making it a 19k. And it can attack anything. So if you just want to attack a rear guard, since it can't hit the vanguard anyways, you can still do it and the ability still goes off. So 3 copies. 4 copies of Nightmare Doll Rhoda. 9k base, 5k shield. Auto rear guard. When placed, this unit gets plus 2k power until end of turn for each of your other workeroids on your vanguard or rear guard. So that's helpful. It does have to be placed on rear, which is unfortunate. But that's a guaranteed plus 2 no matter where it's being placed from, considering the vanguard is always going to be a workeroid, unless you're on a trigger, but that will never happen by the time that you call this, presumably, because of how the rules work. So it's a guaranteed 11, and considering how easy this deck can pop out a board and shove it back to soul so that they can't really nuke it or bind it, it's going to be really easy for this thing to get a lot of power. So 4 copies. Like, on average, that thing just gets plus 10k. Like, on average, the game goes more than 3 grade 3 turns. It's called during the first grade 3 turn. 19k plus. It's always helpful. And you can also call it during the battle phase from effects that will call it from the soul, and then you can just get more power out of it. And then on to the next unit. 4 copies of the new grade 2 Nightmare Doll Marissa. 9k base, 5k shield, auto vanguard or rear guard. When placed from hand, put a card from your hand into your soul. Look at top 7, reveal to 2 non-grade 2 workeroid normal units from one of them and put them into your hand and shuffle your deck. So that's really helpful. It can search you for the 2 main grade 3s, or like the 2 main pieces of this puzzle, or like some of your grade 1s that you need to search out for later, like Abigail and stuff like that. As long as it's not a grade 2, it goes to your hand. So all around, really helpful, and there's no real cost for it besides shoving something to soul, which honestly, that's not really a cost because you can just call it out from soul anyways. So 4 copies. And now on to grade 3s. So 3 copies of Nightmare Doll Alice. Why is Alice at 3? Considering like she's a staple, or not necessarily a staple, but she's always a considered card when you're thinking about building a Pale Moon deck. Well, because the new grade 3 Chelsea kind of outshines her, but she still has a benefit because there's no other card you can really put in here. So just in case you can't see Chelsea, you can at least use Alice because she works too. 12k base, not 13. Excel gift, no shield. Auto vanguard, when placed, call to 1 workeroid from your soul to rear, and that unit gets plus 5k power at end of turn. That is a vanguard restrictive skill, but that does give you a guaranteed call to anything, so it's still helpful. And auto rear guard, at the end of the battle that it attacked, counter blast 1 and soul blast 1, put this unit into the soul and call a non-grade 3 card from your soul to rear. So that's helpful. You can call down this thing from soul. You can call down this. So you can call Rhoda and Ellen, or one of the 2. You can call down Abigail and just have her ability proc off at the end of the turn. Since you did just have a grade 3 workeroid to soul, you can retire it and then get it back and then countercharge, so that you basically undid the cost, kind of, minus the soul blast. So it was really helpful. So 3 copies of Alice. 4 copies of the final new card, Nightmare Doll Chelsea. 12k base, Excel gift, no shield. Auto vanguard circle at the end of the battle that it attacked. Counterblast 1 and call up to 2 workeroids from your soul to rear. And if your opponent's vanguard's a grade 3 or greater, those called unit gets plus 10k power to end of turn. So that's really helpful. It has an on-vanguard ability that can get you 2 more attackers, and it gives them plus 10 if they're grade 3 or greater, so unless they pulled a trigger, those attacks will hit. And auto rearguard circle, at the end of the battle that it attacked, if your vanguard is a workeroid, put it to soul, choose up to one of your opponent's rear guards, and put it into their soul. So not as good as Alice on rear, because it basically, for Alice, you get to call more units and get more attacks out of it. For Chelsea, you kind of just get rid of a rear guard, and if it's like an interceptor, maybe that will kill them if you have more attacks after that. But that ability isn't kind of good on rear. But it's made up by 4 copies of Nightmare Doll Carol. 12k base, Excel gift, no shield. Auto vanguard, when placed, look at top 5, put up to 1 card from one element to your soul and shuffle your deck. If you put a grade 3 workeroid, you may call that card to rear. So that's very helpful because you can just search for this and call it down to board. You can search for this and call it down to board. But also, auto vanguard, when your grade 3 rear guard is put into soul, both of these have abilities on rear that shove into soul, so that's helpful. Counterblast 1 and discard 2, write a workeroid from your soul as stand, and that unit loses 1 drive until end of turn. So that's really helpful, because that's a guaranteed 2 Excel gifts in one go, because you just keep rewriting this, so 2 Excel gifts. If you ride into Alice, you get 1 more attack, not counting the Vanguard, so like 2 more attacks, 1 with the drive check and 1 without it. And the rear guard, you call something and gets plus 5, while this thing, you get 2 more attacks out of it, and if you play it right, you can use let's see, where is it? You can use Abigail to retire itself at the end of the turn and get Carol back into your hand if it's still in Soul. Ride it, get more gifts. Hopefully look at top 5 and find a Chelsea or a Alice among them, and then put it on the board. So really nice. It's kind of focused around Carol, but Chelsea also makes the deck more consistent. So Carol and Chelsea make good combo, and Alice also works with it. So 4 copies of Chelsea, 4 copies of Carol, 3 copies of Alice. And then gift-wise, we run 8 of both because you always want to have your gifts at the same amount. But also, you're going to ride a lot in this deck unless your opponent dies quickly, which is always a possibility considering how aggressive this deck can be with attacks. Like, guaranteedly, I promise you, you can take my word for this because it's happened every time I've played this deck so far, and I've played this deck like 10 times. If you can call out your whole board, first grade 3 turn. There's been nothing additional, no draw pluses except for maybe 1 draw PG drive checked, and you picked Excel 2 and you've only rode once so far, and it's the first grade 3 turn. You can call out a full board or most of a full board. You get 4 attacks out of it, and then you use your Vanguard skill combined with either Chelsea or Alice. For the sake of opinion-wise, let's just go Chelsea. Shove Chelsea to Soul, get rid of something on the opponent's board. Skill of Carol, ride, get a gift, draw, attack of Chelsea, skill of Chelsea, counterblast. Call 2 things from Soul, 1 to the rear guard that Chelsea was just on, 1 to the other Axel circle that was just placed, and you get more attacks out of it that way. And that's just really helpful. And I promise you, you will survive the opponent's next turn unless you just have a bunch of PGs and they PG restrict you, or they just are playing Dimension Place and they hit for really big numbers to your really small number. Either way, it's just how the deck works. But on to what the gifts actually do. Excel 1, you can place it. It has to go from top left to top right and etc. You just keep swapping back between the 2. And it's an additional rear guard that you get, and the unit on it will get plus 10k power during your turn, adding more power to your attacks. And Excel 2, it does the same thing, but you get to draw when it's placed, and it gives 5k power instead of 10. So you're kind of giving up power for a draw, which is always helpful. It's up to you which one you want to pick. If you think your opponent is going to be like, they're going to wait for the late game, and they're going to wreck you in that late game, go Excel 1. Beat the ever-living shit out of them. If you think they're going to go for the late game kill, go Excel 1, beat the shit out of them. If they can get a lot of hand cards easily and you want to get rid of all of them, go Excel 1. If you think you're going to need the hand cards against them, or you think this is not a deck that strives in the late game to where you can kill them early regardless of which gift you get, go Excel 2. It's the strategical one. It can get you more hand cards. Just always go with Excel 2. If you, like I said before, late game deck or a deck that you think you need to finish quickly, Excel 1. If it's a deck that you're not worried about, Excel 2. But the deck works with either. And then Quick Shield. You know, the standard, when one of you uses attack, it gets plus 5k power till end of turn. End of battle. Why it's not an actual shield, I will never understand that, but that's just how the world works. Well, that was the deck. I hope you guys enjoyed. I never used to like Nightmare Dolls. I could never actually test out Alice in real life because I never had the money to, and I actually liked Alice and Carol, but for some reason I was never able to keep the combo going more than 2 turns in a row, and I would always die on that 3rd turn because the deck was never consistent enough, because I didn't have enough to actually keep going with the play. But Chelsea makes it more consistent because now there are more ways to get the stuff back, so if you don't just constantly draw into them, at least you can combo with Abigail and the new grade 2 that I cannot remember for the life of me, Marissa, and just use their skills to constantly filter back out your grade 3s and get them back to hand and rewrite them. And Chelsea just being a secondary Alice where it can also go to Soul as well. So all around, really nice deck. I hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, donate to the Patreon. There's a Discord, so you can join that if you wish. There is a Twitch, so go follow that. I have my 2nd channel that's focused on Beyblade, so you can go subscribe to that. And all those links are in the description below. Main takeaway, don't forget to stand up your vanguards.